Hey everyone, this is Joy the Dietitian with Custom Fit Nutrition. I'm finally getting around to recording about how to make substitutions in recipes. I'm one of those cooks that tends to use a dash of this and a pinch of that. I know that annoys a lot of people, but I wanted to put together some suggestions for frequently asked questions. And so I'm going to start with eggs or egg whites, either one. The first obvious thing to think about is, hey, if chicken eggs don't work, how about duck eggs or maybe even turkey eggs? Duck eggs are a little bit easier to find than turkey eggs, of course. But if you can find duck eggs, they make a great tasting replacement one-to-one for chicken eggs. But if eggs aren't working in any shape or form, then you could try bean juice. And so I'm talking about the liquid that comes from canned beans like garbanzo beans, pinto beans, black beans, red beans, white beans, kidney beans, all of those kinds of beans. The juice that is in the can actually works as a replacer for egg whites, and it works so well that there's a company that has been marketing it as aquafaba. That's garbanzo bean juice. Anyway, the ratio is the same as with egg whites. So if you use bean juice, it's going to be 3 tablespoons bean juice for 1 egg. You can also use gelatin, and so I'm talking about plain gelatin, kind of like what would have been used for Knox blocks back in the day, but we want you to use something a little bit better quality than that, so maybe some grass-fed animal gelatin. And so 1 tablespoon of the gelatin powder plus 3 tablespoons of hot water would equal 1 egg. I have found that you better be ready to dump that in your mix right away because it does set up pretty quickly. You can also use flax seeds and water. So 1 egg would be 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds plus 3 tablespoons of water, and you stir that up and let that sit for a little bit. You can use tofu. So 1/4 cup of silken or liquid tofu would equal 1 egg. You can use a combination of baking soda and vinegar. So you would use this for like fluffy baked goods, and the ratio would be 1 teaspoon baking soda to 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. I'd be careful with what kind of vinegar too, because if you use something like balsamic or a wine vinegar, you might not want that taste or even color. You can also use a banana. So 1/2 of a mashed banana would equal 1 egg. This is useful in baking things like quick breads, pancakes, something where you don't mind the sweet flavor. You can use chia seeds in water. You can use applesauce, and some have even used mashed avocado. Now let's talk about cheese. So think about, again, the most obvious thing, if cow cheese doesn't work and various types of cow cheese aren't working, you could always try sheep cheese or goat cheese. Costco carries a really great tasting manchego. That's an option. That's made from sheep's milk. Or you can look at goat cheese, which many of them tend to be more along the lines of a cream cheese, but with a stronger flavor. But that would be one place to start. Otherwise, think about the functionality of the cheese in your recipe. So if it's a sauce, maybe it's just like a mac and cheese sauce. You could use a recipe for a sweet potato sauce. I saw that come up in my search and I thought that was interesting. You could also make a cashew sauce or a tahini sauce or even a coconut cream sauce. Some might just use pesto, get a slightly different flavor, but still a zesty tang. For a cream cheese replacement, you could do a cashew cheese recipe that we do have in our files. Or if you're looking for chunks, I even saw a recipe using zucchini made with gelatin. Other alternatives for a chunked cheese or sliced cheese come from other nut milks. So I've seen almond cheese, I have seen soy cheese, and I've seen rice milk cheese. So if you can make a milk from it, you can probably make a cheese from it. The challenge with the different types of cheese available at the market is that sometimes they have lots of ingredients, and so you want to make sure and read all of those ingredients make sure that they still work for you. Another option in recipes is to use nutritional yeast or brewer's yeast or yeast extract. This would be similar to using something like Parmesan cheese. But I do want to make a note here that if you have had issues with a yeast overgrowth in your recent past, or if you're currently dealing with one, it might not be a good idea to be adding more yeast to your diet at this time. There are certain brands out there at the different grocery stores that you'll see and online. So Daya, Kite Hill, Follow Your Heart, Teas, Tofutti, and Tree Line Tree Nut are some of the few that I know of, and I am sure there are more. It's very popular to want cheese in a recipe, and lots of companies are stepping up to the task. Let's address flours. So flours are a little bit more challenging in terms of baking. If you're a baker, it can be tricky to replace flours because they all have different properties, and baking is almost like a chemistry experiment. You have to be very exact with the recipe in order to get the results you're looking for. Now, I don't mind experimenting in the kitchen. My mom taught me not to be afraid to do that, and I really credit her for that because it allowed me to have a lot of fun with what I do. But if you are very exacting and you want your baked product to turn out perfect, then I would recommend looking online first about your particular flours and ratios and making sure that's going to work for you. I did find a great beginner's kind of guide to alternative flours, and the website is spoonuniversity.com/lifestyle/a guide to alternative flours. So I would look there first, but I'm going to go through some of the basics. So other grains and or seeds are often used as gluten-free alternatives to wheat flour, and such as millet, rice, oat, corn, quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, teff, and sorghum. Some of these flours will need to use binders and some don't. So a good example would be buckwheat. We have a recipe for buckwheat pancakes that doesn't even require a binder. There are flours made from different kinds of nuts. Two of the most common ones I see are almond and hazelnut. Now, nut flours tend to be a little thinner, so they're likely going to need a binder. And for most of the recipes, they also will combine a nut flour with another kind of flour, such as coconut. There are flours made with beans, so garbanzo bean and or chickpea flour. That means the same thing. Garbanzo beans and chickpeas are the same. And there are pastas made from this as well. I've seen black bean flour, white bean flour, soy flour, lentil flour. I am now seeing more and more of these different flour options made into pastas at the store, and I notice on the label that they don't require binders. So in terms of how they're making the pastas, that's kind of nice. Coconut flour is a little bit different in terms of it tends to soak up a lot of water. And so if coconut flour is to be used in a recipe as a replacement, it will require much less to be used and more liquid in your recipe. So that one is very tricky, and you want to make sure that you're following a recipe that actually has used it before. Banana flour, that one is kind of nice, especially the green banana flour. It seems to have a consistency similar to whole wheat flour. So that would be one that would be hard for your family to tell it wasn't whole wheat flour. Potato flour and potato starch are two different things. Now, potato flour uses the whole potato, whereas potato starch is just using the inside starchy component. So potato starch is probably going to be more like a thickener or a binder, whereas potato flour would be the bigger part of the recipe. Cassava flour is often confused for tapioca flour. Tapioca flour is made from the cassava plant. And cassava flour is a bit thicker and heavier than tapioca starch. So tapioca starch is similar to potato starch in terms of often being used as a binder. But you know, we have a recipe for our easy cheese bread that uses tapioca starch and eggs and cheese, and it makes a delicious recipe. So thanks. I hope this answered some questions for you today, and we'd love to see you at the office anytime. Custom Fit Nutrition, and our website is customfitnutrition.net.